everybody, and welcome to the Empowered CPA podcast. I am your host, Dawn Scott. Today, I have Morgaine Trine with me, who is the founder of a bookkeeping company who has a very specific niche that they serve, and this beautiful platform that she has built to allow her to enjoy her love of travel while still having her professional self. So everybody, please welcome Morgaine.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here, Dawn.
I'm so excited. So in true me fashion, we were chatting yesterday about we have some joint clients, and we were, shooting the bull, and I was like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow at 10 Eastern? Because I just had a feeling that you wanted to be here with me.
Yeah, it's great.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your practice, and then I'm going to ask you some specifics, because I think there's some important things that differentiate you from a lot of bookkeeping practices. So why don't you give us a little background to historically to today?
Yeah, absolutely. So my firm is called Honestly Bookkeeping, and we provide bookkeeping and a little bit of controller services to small businesses who want to stabilize, strengthen, and create sustaining financial systems. That's the sort of elevator pitch right there. And what that means in practice is that we are very process oriented. And so instead of niching down by industry, we niche by process. And that includes both some specific tech stack that we require our clients to utilize when they work with us. And then also just sort of some systems in how we operate, communicate, and, actually do the work with our clients. And so I know sort of one of the big pieces that we're probably going to talk about is that we're a Xero only firm. And so Xero is sort of one of the big bookkeeping softwares besides QuickBooks Online that's on the market today. And then you touched on it sort of in the introduction, but I started the firm because I wanted to be able to travel. My degree is actually in ancient Mediterranean history, and I realized, right, exactly. After I graduated, I realized I didn't really want to go down that like master's PhD route and make that sort of my career. And instead, I wanted to be able to physically be near the history that I studied and love. And I wanted a business that could support that. So honestly, bookkeeping came about because I really just wanted the freedom to be able to work from anywhere in the world.
I love that. I just think that's great. And so you have multiple employees, and they're also all virtual. And we touched on this a little bit yesterday, but touch on how you've set it up for them so that they can have, kind of a different lifestyle too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I have several employees. They're all over the U.S. And two things that I really appreciate how I set this up, and I think my employees appreciate it too, is one that I don't have strict work hours, right? So I'm not like, you have to be in front of the computer, from like 9 to 5. I say generally, at least sometime during the week, it'd be great if you're available during normal business hours. But I have a couple of people who like to get up at 5 a.m. and do work before their family gets up. And so, as long as you're getting the work done and, have some flexibility to, if we need to meet together or meet with a client during regular hours, it's do the work as it's fits into your schedule. And then the other thing is right now, all of the team members are only working part-time. And what I find that really provides them the ability to, be there for their family, be there, for most of them have kids. And so, be there for a school pickup, drop off, have that flexibility to be a parent, as well as, being an employee and a worker and participating in, the workplace.
I love that. I'm also a mom, right? So
Yeah.
that's just something that's very important. And I've worked places where that flexibility was not available. And I was told I should have 2 nannies. I should have 1 regular nanny and 1 backup nanny.
God.
So I know what the other side of that feels like. And, I think that's such a gift that you give to your employees. And I also think it helps sustain and maintain longevity in your employees when they feel that type of support. I joke all the time, I'm married to someone who gets up at 4 a.m. and I think that's crazy. But it works for him. And so it's funny because he's like, come work out with me. I was like, yeah, at like 8, I've done 4 hours of work by the time I'm ready, and everyone's clock is just different. So I love that that's exactly how you specifically set out to achieve your goals of time management, what works for you, and then really provide that for others.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are familiar, obviously, with QuickBooks Online, and I was actually in the industry when Xero first surfaced in the States. I remember all of that, and I did get certified, which you wouldn't know now by my usage of it. But could you tell everybody why you chose to go the Xero route and kind of the main differences, because there are some things inside Xero that are super powerful and very different, but there are some things that I think are great and people probably just don't know about them. So why don't you walk us through that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I originally found out about Xero because I did the Bookkeeper Business Launch certification, which is, I think, becoming sort of an industry standard for bookkeeper training.
So.
And when I did that certification, it was still all taught on Xero. So in order for me to go through the actual, lessons and material, I had to be on Xero. And so that sort of was my first introduction.
So that was your choice. Okay.
Yeah, right. But the more I started working with it, and then I got a couple of clients in QuickBooks, I just was like, QuickBooks does not work for my brain. I don't get it. And Xero just made so much more sense for me. So some of the key differences, and I'll preface this by a good software is the software that works for your brain, right? And part of this is just, it works better for my brain and how I process information. But one of the main things that I really love about Xero is I find that the user interface is more open and just generally user friendly. One of my big issues with QuickBooks Online is that the actual space where you categorize transactions is a tiny little box on my screen. And because I use a laptop because I'm traveling so much, I can't have multiple monitors. Yeah. And so where Xero, where I'm actually interfacing with the transactions is the full screen. And I just find it's more open. There's more white space for me. And I really appreciate that. Another thing that is small, but for me makes a huge difference is that Xero has those breadcrumbs at the top of the page. So if you click into a screen, you can really easy navigate back a screen or a couple screens. Whereas there's a couple of places in QuickBooks Online that if you click into that screen, there's no way to go back to the previous screen, even if you hit the back button. So I'm going back several steps and then having to go into where I actually needed to see information.
Yes.
So that's on like the user interface why I like Xero better. The other thing is that it has an open API, and I have a lot of clients who are pretty tech forward, and so like they've created custom softwares, and that's able to integrate directly with Xero, whereas like the integrations for QuickBooks Online are
Tough.
not as good.
Yeah, no, they're tough.
Yeah.
If they don't exist, they're impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like with Xero, if it doesn't exist, you can create something.
Right.
So like ideally down the road, I'd love to have like a developer on staff who can create like custom API and tech solutions for all my clients.
That's fun.
And then I also just on the sort of ethics side of things, QuickBooks parent company Intuit has done a lot of shady marketing and
Free File? Are you referring to Free File?
Yeah, I'm referring to Free File.
Big trouble. No, that's a valid. I love that you bring that up, actually.
Yeah, and so for people who don't know, like the government has a program where if you make under a certain amount of income per year, you're eligible to file your taxes for free. And Intuit, i.e. TurboTax, as well as some of the other big tax softwares, have done programs where like if you Google like TurboTax free, it doesn't take you to the actual Free File program. It takes you to like a quote unquote free version that
Pay
like
at the end.
that like upsells you and ends up like costing people who should be eligible to file for free to pay money to file their taxes. And so there's just some things like that. And then also with how QuickBooks, the monthly fee gets charged and like
double
some of
all the time.
Yeah, like it's just not super great in my opinion.
No, I think those are important differences because, I think as small businesses, and I'm guilty of it too, it's like when you think about an accounting system for a small business, QuickBooks Online is literally what 99 out of 100 people are going to say. And this is a humble moment for me and ironically kind of how we started our relationship. But like I mentioned, I'd used Xero in the past and I'm pretty technology savvy. I've been around it my whole life. My dad was an OG programmer, so I'm very comfortable with it and cocky and just general life. Yeah. And I had a client who we transitioned to QuickBooks Online because I was like, I'm not touching desktop. And then he wanted an API from an outside vendor and it didn't plug into QuickBooks Online and it was a European-based company. And I was like, let's not tamper with this. And the only thing it plugged into was Xero. And I was like, I've used Xero before. How hard could it be? Like, I got this. So I get it set up. We work all together. And holy crap, did it not go well. And then I was like, and then I get really pissed and I get really determined and I'm like, I can do this. And then, I spent all this time trying to force it to do what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'll just journal it around. It'll be fine. I know what I'm doing. And then at one point I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm over it. And I can't do this. So it was definitely like a humble moment where I had to come to you and I was like, okay, so I'm sure if I had a lot of time on my hands, I could figure this out, but you're the expert and I am obviously not. So please help me.
Totally. Well, and also like it's made a ton of updates since it first came out.
It used to have a payroll module.
It did, yes. And I believe the payroll module is still available if you're not on one of the U.S. plans. Because Xero is a New Zealand-based company, and like once you get outside of the U.S. market, it has a way larger market share in sort of the rest of the world.
Yeah, definitely. So you are one thing I love about your practice is that you're very process based. So do you have a specific onboarding process with your clients? How does that work? Since you guys are all your employees are in different places, tell me a little bit about your internal structure.
Yeah, absolutely. So once someone like signs the contract, um, we send them an onboarding email, and that step is just getting access to all of the things that we need. And that, like, sometimes it's super quick, sometimes it takes forever to get, all of that access. But it's, bank accounts, other softwares that they're using, if they already have a Xero account, getting access to all of that, and then anything specific that came out during the consultation we did. Because I start with a consultation, so I can get a really good grasp of what all is involved with this specific business. And so I just have like a template in my project management software. And once someone signs the contract, I just, edit some specific things in that template for this project. And then from there, I assign both a bookkeeper and an account manager. And so the bookkeeper is doing, a lot of that daily, weekly categorizations, monthly bank reconciliations, and creating the reports. And then the account manager is reviewing those reports, being there as like a second set of eyes, so that if there's a question about something, the bookkeeper and account manager can bounce ideas back and forth amongst one another. And then that account manager is also the person that's doing more of that client interface and being more of that point of contact to, answer questions, ask for more information, and just sort of being like that one person that the client knows, okay, I can always ask them and they'll, get the right answer, or, tag the right person to get me the right answer.
I love that. It's so important. I mean, I am finding that process is becoming more and more common, and I love hearing that there's, little tweaks, but a pretty solid process. It also helps when you have more than one employee, or, if somebody's out, like the documentation is there. Like, I was looking for a password for something from like 3 years ago, and I can't find it. And I'm still like not okay about it. But, like onward and upward, we're all making progress. But I think one thing that I want to circle back to that we just chatted about, that I think is really cool about what you're building and just says a lot about your personality, is that not only are you socially responsible in what you do, and you're aware of the ethics of the vendors that you use. That's something I love about what you do, but you do also give back a lot in terms of, community and giving monetarily. Tell me about that part of your, community involvement in your company you've built.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's two main ways that we do that. So one is we participate in the Stripe Climate Project, which is really cool. And what it is you can select a percentage of all revenue you collect through Stripe to go to carbon capture projects. And so like Stripe selects, I think every year, like a couple of projects to help fund, and they do like matching funds as well. And so the goal there is to really help make these projects more affordable. And so like if you think of it like when a DVD player first came out, like it was super expensive.
Yeah.
Right. And now you have to pay to like give them away.
They don't even put them in your car anymore. I was driving in my mom's car the other day, and I was like, Mom, you have a DVD player or like a CD player in your car. And she's like, well, yeah, Dawn. I'm like, no, but like, what?
Right.
Right. I mean, it's progress in that. So yeah, my firm participates in that too. And that's something that I think is great about, and it helps bigger picture than just you. And I think it's great that you do that. And there's more things you participate in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so then the other way that we primarily contribute is we donate 2% of gross revenue, to a nonprofit that I've been involved with since I was 12. I actually sit on the board of directors for it also. And so it's a nonprofit out in Washington State called Sacred Earth Foundation. And it sort of has three main program branches. So the first is that it's a land trust, and we have about 1,135 acres in trust right now in sort of the most important conservation watershed for the Columbia River Gorge. And then the second program branch is offering the actual oh wow, words. The actual location for programs. And so the main one we do is summer camps for kids. And it's an off-the-grid working ranch. And we also teach kids how to ride horses. And so I originally got connected through the summer camp program. I was a camper. And then I, became summer camp staff. And then eventually, became a board member for the organization. And so that's really, really cool. And we get a ton of, people mostly from like the Seattle and Portland areas coming and participating. And then the third branch is one of the first certified green burial cemeteries in the U.S. And so we have about 20 acres currently reserved for the cemetery, with an additional 20 that can be added once that's full.
Wow! So in the same Columbia River Gorge area.
Correct. Yes. So all three of these branches are held in various parcels of that 1,135 acres.
Get specific. Yeah. I've never heard of that. Tell me everything. What's the I mean, listen, I shared last week, my grandma passed a couple weeks ago, so I'm actually quite up on the burial process.
Totally.
So what's the difference between what I'm experiencing, which is obviously not the green version? What is the difference? What's the difference?
Yeah. So our cemetery is a conservation cemetery. So what that means is, so in each plot, we bury, when we bury a body, we put a small metal plaque at the head and the foot so that, we can locate bodies.
We can find you later.
Yeah, exactly. And then what it means is that there's no permanent markers. So frequently what happens is the family comes out and they create like some sort of marker using stones and feathers and flowers that they find sort of right in that plot area, and create something just using, the materials that are, already in the environment. And then it also means we're digging most of the plots by hand, and trying to use as little machinery as we can, so that we're not having a big impact on the environment. And we're also in the process of training one of our horses to draw a cart, so that you can move the body from like the main parking area on the horse-drawn hearse all the way out to the cemetery, which is, I think, about a half mile out. From that. Yeah, it's really cool. And there's a lot, we encourage family involvement, right? So like if the family member wants to come out and help dig the grave, like we welcome it, and like we said, having family members create that, natural headstone is also really encouraged.
Wow. I have so many questions, but we'll talk more about it.
Totally.
I had no idea, and I could go on a total tangent.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I also want to say, like, I just finished listening to your episode on death and taxes, and I really appreciated it. And I think that that conversation around money and death is so needed. And
It just is. It's awful.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it hurts. Like, this has been a good opportunity. I talk about money all the time, so it's not very emotional to me. And I recognize that that's not normal for society, but
hmm
normalizing the conversation is so
yeah,
important because,
hmm
I think the one thing that is just really clear is not only are we trying to mourn somebody, like I, as a granddaughter, am trying to mourn someone,
hmm
but I'm also trying to clean up a big fat mess,
yeah,
and it's hard to do those two things at the same time. And my brain is very logical. So there's a timeline on the cleaning up the mess part,
yeah,
which basically pushes the morning part to later. So I'll probably need therapy
yeah,
later to deal with
right,
all of this, and so just,
yeah,
and like I said in that podcast, I think the thing that is, obviously we all want our businesses to keep going on and we all want all these things, but making sure your children, especially when
hmm
your children are young, like mine,
hmm
making sure that they're accounted for and like placed somewhere that doesn't involve the state.
hmm
I think if you get nothing else out of that episode, like have the hard conversation, take care of your children,
absolutely,
because man, you're going to give them a lot of therapy if you don't do if you don't do that,
yes,
and
exactly,
it's a hard truth. Like it's a
yeah,
small thing now to avoid therapy forever.
hmm
But yeah, it's a process. And I mean, listen, I don't think I'm going to die ever. Like I'm firmly committed to not
right.
doing that. But again, I probably will. I just hope it's in a really long time, but put that past you. How, still going back to this, how did this green cemetery come about? Is this a passion
Yeah.
project of somebody? Is your passion project? How did this happen?
Yeah. So the man who founded the ranch, Ray Mitchell, um, died unexpectedly in 2007,
Okay.
and he had always sort of thrown around the idea of creating a cemetery. But when he died, e- everyone knew that he needed to be buried on this land, just because he
He belonged there.
loved it so intensely. And
What's
you
beautiful
know,
there?
oh, it's absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous. And he built it up from an original purchase of 160 acres to, I think, by the time he died, it was just under 1,000. So he had done a ton to do conservation in this area,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that was because in the 80s there was a ton of logging happening
Mm-hmm.
in this area of
Yep.
Washington, and so he was trying to get the land and protect it from logging. So when he died, the sort of the community around this organization was like, all right, I guess it's time. And so, we went out and did all of the stuff to get the cemetery, certified and created. I mean, at this time I was 14, so I was not,
You weren't involved in the
I was not
paperwork.
deeply involved with the paperwork.
Lucky,
um,
lucky.
right. So now I can't say the same, but yeah, that's what sort of prompted the addition of the cemetery was, his sort of unexpected death.
Got it. That's just I literally am gonna go down a rabbit hole later, just so
Oh,
we're all
totally.
clear on that. It's funny because we have chats like every couple of
hmm
months, just because I think, this may just be my feeling, but in a small business, a lot of times you're by yourself or you're with one or two other people, and sometimes that gets kind of lonely or
hmm
just repetitive. And so one thing that I really enjoyed about our relationships is I emailed you a week ago. I was like, hey, you want to have a video call? Just to like check in, see what you're doing. What are you
hmm
working on?
Yeah.
And finding those partners is so critical, at least to my happiness.
hmm
And as a business owner, I think that that's something that people need to, be aware of, is having somebody like you are to me, where
hmm
I can just call and be like, hey, shit's crazy. How are you doing? you know, it
Right.
just, and having people that I can do that, but I trust your technical skills, and we share
hmm
a lot of clients, and I think that that's something that's important to people too. It's like, hey, find people who not only share your like common professional goals, but share your common, ethics or, integrity of your business to, that's how we all rise together. And that's something I think a lot of people, especially after these last 2 years where we are all, holed up in our caves, something that I would certainly encourage business owners to do, because sometimes you struggle with, this is hard for me. And then just knowing that maybe someone else is struggling with the same thing or someone's mastered that thing. That's really an important part of the community that, we need to build our villages on.
Yeah, exactly. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there, because it is, very isolating, especially when you're, working from home.
Yeah.
And like some days I can go without leaving the house entirely.
Some days.
Right.
Hold my beer.
But especially I feel in the accounting industry, it's so hard, from my perspective as a bookkeeper, finding good accountants. Like I have a very small list of people that I can refer to, and most of them are, have full practices and can't take on new clients. Right. And so I think it's something where, like, when I have new clients come to me and they're expressing frustration around finding a good, CPA or accountant, like I can really empathize with that. And that's, I think, partly why it's so great that, you and I have been able to connect, is that, I do have respect for you for how you handled the technical expertise. And we do have a lot of
lack of technical. You could say it. It's fine. I've come to peace with it.
No, I mean, with the Xero, like, that's just whatever. But like you know your stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
in my own stuff, I'm good. We don't.
Yeah. So that's lovely to have, that relationship too on the professional side.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed that, and I think it's and it's funny because once we connected for something unrelated, and then we realized how many times our paths have touched each other. And that was so fun. And,
right.
I'm like, geez, we're in this group of like 30 people together, and we have been for years. It's just, it's so important. And I think that's one thing that, is just really needs to come across, is that none of us can do this by ourselves. And, like yesterday I was running some new projects by you. I'm like, these are the things I'm excited to work on. And that keeps my fuel fired. It's like, I'm doing these things and these are so fun, but these are the things I'm also working on, and taking the input and really growing together, as individuals, but also as a community. It's so fun. And, one thing we chatted about briefly before this is, I'm very open about how I do one thing a year that really scares me. And this year I seem to be doing all the things that scare me, and I don't know, I need to pump the brakes on that. But I'm taking my very first riding lesson tomorrow. I know. I was raised in Idaho, and I grew up around horses. I honestly don't know why I've never been on a horse, but I've never been on a horse, and I'm scared to death. And it's fun that I know that you are heavily involved in that, and I'm confident you can tell me how to not fall off tomorrow. I'm not going to fall off. Just tell me I'm not going to fall off. Right?
Oh, you are 100% going to fall off at some point. But that's important.
Oh my God. I'm not even going to start.
No. And here's the thing, like you get it in your head that it's going to be this like horrible accident, and like it's going to be something stupid that like you think the horse is gonna like go left, and like you overcompensate and it moves more right, and like you're just gonna kind of slip off, and that's fine. Like the ways in which I have fallen off a horse are absolutely comical, and sometimes I land on my feet. Sometimes
that won't be me.
Mostly I land on my feet, but like sometimes.
I promise.
But like that's so important. Like you have to go through that to like fully understand and like have that trust in yourself with the horse. So like, no, it's going to happen at some point, and you're going to be fine.
I actually feel a little better that I could possibly land on my feet. I mean,
oh yeah.
It's possible. Okay.
Totally.
Maybe I can ride a pony. I'm like 6 feet tall. I probably can't ride a pony. Dang it.
Ponies are pretty stubborn. They have a pony personality is a real thing. So
I mean, I think that translates too into business, right? We all fall on our ass at some point.
Exactly.
We just try to land on our feet. But I'll keep you posted on my horseback riding.
Please do.
My trainer is a lovely woman, and maybe she'll catch me if I fall.
Entirely possible.
Entirely possible. So tell me, because I could talk to you for hours. Tell me the thing that you are the most proud of in the firm that you have built, and what brings you kind of the most pride or joy, or those warm feelings. Mine are usually my tequila, but what are your mezcal these days?
Right. Oh, way to put me on the spot.
I know. That's the best part.
Okay.
It's the best part of being around me. Never know.
I think the main thing that I take a lot of pride in is that I make my clients feel supported, and like help them feel less at sea in the world of finances. I get a lot of feedback of like, thank you so much for helping me understand this, or I feel safer with you, as part of my team. And just like being there to, act as a compass for the clients and help them feel more comfortable and more in ownership of their own business finances is just an incredible feeling.
I love that. I think that's what we all strive for. Well, that's what I strive for too. I love that is like your North Star. That makes me really happy. That's why we work so well together.
Totally.
Well, this has been so much fun. Honestly, we could do this for like 6 hours and we may lose a couple of listeners.
Right. You'll just have to have me back on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll update with my horse riding and my acrobatics.
Yes.
I'm not very, oh gosh. Yes, definitely. I would love that so much. I'll give you more notice next time, which is uncharacteristic for me. But thank you so much. It's been so much fun. And to all my listeners, I appreciate you so much. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you enjoy your shows.